So I want to talk about community, really community belonging and connection. So I want to share with you something I wrote for Faith and Prayer, an organization that I'm working with to help give birth to their idea of building a community. And these are just my random thoughts here as I grapple with how I want to be in community. So we all live in a community and have friends and a family. We live in cities or rural areas in cooperation with other people. We organize ourselves into villages, towns, and cities, and we pay taxes. I look at taxes as a form of cost sharing for roads, utility delivery, that sort of thing. Now, we abide by certain laws which set the tone and standards for acceptable behavior and how we will live together peacefully. Now, if you change the locale, you're going to find that there's going to be some very different standards, laws, and definitely customs. There are certain customs that you see when you go into certain areas. Now, those of us who live in North America, we live peacefully and cooperatively together. We have pride in our homes, our neighborhood, our cities. We might even live in close proximity to each other, but we often don't know each other. We live in communities and yet we don't feel connected. Think about it. How many times have you waved at a neighbor, said hello, and yet not know their names or anything about them, their families, or their history? Certainly, we know nothing about their dreams and aspirations. So why is that? Why are we know we can recognize people, but we don't know them? Is it because we don't talk to them because we fear our neighbors? Is this a habit of some core survival mechanism, the fight and flight response? Yet I believe at the core of my soul, I long for real, heartfelt connections and conversations. And I believe that this is a fundamental need that every human being has to be able to connect with another human being. Another living, breathing soul. So what do you think of that? When you think of that human connection, the question comes up, well, how do we make these connections? Well, I believe at the core of our being is a need to be in conversation, to be in dialogue. Yeah, I think that we crave connection, and by default, we crave conversations. Because without a conversation, without that verbal connection, to the degree of the quality of my conversations, I believe so goes the quality of my life. So I think we need more conversations with more people, more people that we don't know. Now, what would happen if we had deep, heartfelt, generous dialogue with one another on a regular basis? I think we would have a much better sense and connection with others and a better understanding of one another. And I think that when we enter into conversation or dialogue, I don't think we can help but come away with an impression and a feeling about the person with each and every conversation. Because I believe that with every conversation, I learn a little bit more about who this person is, who they are, where they work. And perhaps I learn something about their family, what interests them, and their hobbies, or the issues that they care about. And that only helps to gain a sense of understanding, a sense of connection with one another. Now, this is confession time. I suck at interaction with strangers and neighbors. And I've been wondering why that is. I think a part of it is that I wrapped myself up. I got so totally involved in my family and a few friends to the exclusion of other people. Now, at this particular point in my life, having buried my family, I find myself as the last man standing. And I feel myself drawn to this idea of living and building a community, but I feel a real hesitation. I feel reluctant to stepping outside my safe and comfortable home. Is it because, what is it that I'm afraid of? Is it that I'm afraid I won't fit in, or that I'll be hurt if I'm rejected, or is it something else? Now, my pattern is that I tend to reach out to friends in spurts. I will get involved in groups and gorge myself in conversations, and I'll take steps to build relationships, concrete steps by getting together with people, phoning people. But then I get to a place where I want my space and I want to pull away from others to recharge. Because I'm an introvert and I need my alone time to recharge my batteries. Otherwise, I end up feeling overwhelmed and anxious. Now, here's the rub. At this particular point in my life, I feel like I need and want to be a part of a community more than ever before. And yet, this month, I quit being a volunteer of an organization, one that I really felt a real strong connection to. And I decided I wasn't going to serve on the board. So to continue, I pulled away from volunteering on this board and supporting this community because I didn't like the positioning, posturing, and politicalization that was taking place in our group. And so I just decided I didn't want that energy in my life. Now, and yet this community, I came together in this community for a common experience, and there's a certain bond that was there. And yet I believe a community must be cared for, has to be cultivated and renewed, and that we need to have conversations, comfortable conversations, uncomfortable conversations, true dialogue, because we have to ask, because if not, we have to ask ourselves, was it ever really, did this community, was it ever really created? Did the community ever truly exist? If we can't figure out how to dialogue and communicate with one another in effective ways, what is that? I mean, is that even a community? Which begs me to ask the question: what are the elements of community? Now, I don't have all the answers to this question, and I struggle with this, but I am curious, and I wanted to share my thoughts with you. So, what is it that draws people into community, into relationships? Well, I think the obvious one, the easiest low-hanging fruit, is proximity, the geographic proximity of, we've been meeting them somewhere else, is a common way that people meet. Well, so how does a community get built or created? Well, I think it all begins with somebody has to make an investment. Somebody has to put themselves out there. And it begins with entering into a dialogue, a heartfelt conversation, I think. And I think we need to learn how to have and create generous dialogue, to invest ourselves in generous listening, sharing, and debating, all while maintaining a sense of curiosity and withholding judgment. Now, I believe that conversations, communication, generous dialogue are key building blocks to creating personal connections. And it's those personal connections which become the early foundation to this or any community, really. So here's my question for you. What are you willing to do to support this community? Are you willing to invest yourself into discussions, dialogue, and conversations with an open heart and a willingness to listen and to just be curious, to see where you can agree and find some common ground with people? Because I think unless we can find the common ground, there's going to be no community, in my experience. I also would like to know, what is your experience of community? Do you feel a connection to your community? How would you describe the qualities of your community? And how would you describe the type of community you would like to become a part of? And in that regard, what do you bring to the community? And what are you willing to share, to contribute to the overall well-being of the community? So, what if the community became our extended family? What would that be like, to think of our local community as an extension of family, of our family? Would that work, or would that simply dredge up a bunch of negative memories, baggage, energy, and it's like, I don't want nothing to do with my family. I need to move on with my life. I don't want to be maybe family isn't the right metaphor. Maybe it's just all about community. How can we figure out how to live generously, supportively with one another? And what is it that's going to bring us together? Is it going to be an idea, a concept? What is it? Obviously, it's going to be some sort of connection. But I think there has to be some rallying point, some catalyst that brings us all together. So I'm really curious what your thoughts are about this. And feel free to share at faithandprayer.com. You can leave a comment there. or you can leave a comment on Facebook. Would love to hear from you. Facebook.com/rebootartist is where Greg is. You can go to faithandprayer.com, which is an organization and community we're trying to build to build collaborative